Summit. We became pretty good buddies. He did a topic. He did this topic at the PowerShell Summit, and I attended the topic as well as spending some time with him, having quite a few beers. But it was a really fascinating topic, and I thought it would be something that I could implement at my own company, and I thought it would be useful for anybody who's thinking about some sort of self-service portal solution or something along those lines. So we reached out to Mark and said, "Hey, man, would you want to do what you did at the summit for us?" And he said, "Absolutely not." But we paid him, and then he said, "Okay." So, so Mark, it's all yours, buddy.
All right, thank you. As he said, my name is Mark Domansky. I'm going to talk to you about WebJEA. I'm just going to jump right into it. WebJEA was designed to solve the problem of granting people access. So you've got help desk staff that need to be able to do privileged actions, or you've got security staff, or maybe junior administrators who need to be able to do domain administrator tasks, but you don't want to grant them a domain admin. Maybe they're not quite there yet. That is what WebJEA is designed to solve. You can, without WebJEA, you can grant somebody a bunch of extra permissions. Maybe you make your help desk staff account operators. The end result of that is, yeah, they can reset the passwords that they needed to, but they can also do a whole lot of other stuff that you maybe don't want them to do. The alternative is you don't give them any access, and now they're coming to you so that they can do their job. WebJEA fixes all of that by letting you write PowerShell and having only one credential to manage. You use all of your existing PowerShell experience, and as quickly as you can write PowerShell scripts, you can be granting access to people to do their job without having to come to you for it. We're going to jump right in to the demo. Right here. Can you all read that all right, or should I make it a little bit bigger?
Bigger. A little bit bigger.
A little bit bigger? All right. How's that?
Better. That's cool.
Maybe about as good as we can get. All right. So WebJEA can be downloaded. I think Mike included the link somewhere, but if not, you just go to webjea.com. I would appreciate it if you signed up for the mailing list. I haven't even sent one email yet, so I don't think. So it's not going to be something that you get spam to, but if you sign up, you'll hear about the latest. So you go there, it takes you to GitHub, you download the installer, and the installer is built as just a DSC package. So you've got a configuration and then your system settings. You provide certificates and user accounts, all the basic values, and with just a short run, this is already installed, but typically it takes about 4 to 5 minutes to install from a bare bones fresh install of Windows. So Windows 16, if you've got a template on virtual machine, you can be up and running in under 5 minutes. While that's running, I'm going to walk you through the commands, walk you through the configuration just a little bit. There were a couple things in here that are a little bit unique. If you're familiar with IIS, then these things are pretty standard. We create an app pool, but one of the things we do is we load the user profile. That's needed because PowerShell needs the environmental variables, and those things don't get initialized without a profile. Things like temp folders, so you wouldn't be able to load remote PowerShell sessions. All of this configuration is designed around using a managed service account. If you're not familiar with managed service accounts, I think they were introduced in 2008 or 2. They've been greatly enhanced in 12. I highly encourage you to use those for services, application pools. You don't have to manage a password. However, an app pool, yeah.
So, so this is using a service account to do the work on behalf of the user, or
that's correct.
So that's what we're trying to do here. So then you'd have multiple service accounts doing multiple different tasks, or maybe you'll get the idea. Go ahead.
You have one service account for the whole thing.
But then I want level 2 service desk to do these tasks. I want level 3 to do those tasks, but I need to give the service account.
The service account has access to all of that. You're just
I
presenting
will,
Okay, you're going to get to that. Oh.
I will get to that. I promise you. I'll answer your question shortly. No problem. So if you're familiar with using DSC, anybody use DSC yet? No? Not a lot of interest?
Sure.
A little bit? Good. If you try and configure an app pool, it won't let you use a managed service account. So we've got a script resource to handle that. Takes care of the managed service account. Beyond that, you've got your standard paths. Where do you want to put these files? You can pretty well take all the defaults and be up and running. These are the only parts you really have to customize. Machine specific. It's designed to use a certificate. That's purely for your web interface. You want to make sure that's secure because you're going to be presenting all sorts of potentially privileged information. And you run through that, and in this example here, it only took a minute and 20, or less than a minute, just 26 seconds to refresh the configuration. So very quick to handle, to install. So I'm just going to run through. I'm going to set some defaults. You manage the configuration for WebJEA through a module that's available on PowerShell Gallery. You install that, and it's pretty similar to any other module you've worked with. You open your file, you make your changes, and you save it. All right, so let's take you through, I'm going to call it a pretty basic scenario of resetting user passwords. I think everybody can follow along with these. You've got your help desk right now, and they all have a count operator, and they may or may not be checking, doing enough validation on the user. They may or may not be remembering to, check the box for reset the user must change their password on the next log on. All of these things that should be happening every time, but don't reliably. So with a script that you can whip up something like this very quickly. You say, okay, I want to write a script that takes in a username and employee ID. That's all we're looking for. That's what we're going to use to validate. We're going to generate a password. We'll do our own validation in the script to make sure your employee ID is set or is correct, and then we come in here and we make sure that change password and next log on is true. So we've gone from having dozens or hundreds potentially people having access to do way more than reset a password and failing to do basic steps like change password. We're going to take care of all of that in one step. Now, when we run this, what we're going to do is what I'm on a workstation and I'm invoking some commands on the web server. There's plenty of ways you could do this, but basically we're just going to say, hey, open our configuration file. We're going to create a new command, in our case, demo1. Here's the script we want to run. And we want to give anybody who logs in for our demo, anybody can log in and run this script. Now, if I pull this page up, I'm given a username and password field automatically generated just from the parameters in the PowerShell script. So if I have, in this case, I'm going to put in user 9999. I know his employee ID. I hit submit, and here we go. It has reset his password. It's made sure that he has checked must change password at next log on, and we've given the help desk employee the password to give back to the employee. Now I've taken away account operators. I've taken away custom AD permissions that I had to keep track of, and I can do any kind of validation I want in here. You could write validation to say, you know what, Tier 1 help desk employees can't change executives' passwords. Who knows? Whatever you want to do in PowerShell. So that is all it takes to get started in WebJEA. This PowerShell script would take your somebody brand new to PowerShell, perhaps on the outside end an hour, certainly less than that for people with a lot of experience, and you've think about how much you've improved the security of your environment just with that step. But we can take that further, and we can improve on that code. We can do things like supporting advanced functions. So we take synopsis, we take the parameter fields in the help block. Maybe in this case we want to take a birth date. We're gonna check, and maybe we want to start offering multiple password resets in one form. Tons of services out there. They're not all single sign-on, so we go through this, and we just build out your typical help advanced function. Help messages, validation. We take all of these fields in. You define your variable types. And in our case, that's about the extent of what we really care about for the demo purposes. And when we come in and run this, we're doing the same thing, but we're going to restrict it to just a single group. So the first command, we could have allowed, it might be more of a self-service function, something that any employee can do. That could be, there's so many options there for what you could be delegating to let your employees do. Maybe submit forms for requesting mailboxes, things like that. But in this case, we're going to restrict it to a specific group. And when we run that, I think we run that, yes. We end up with taking all of those parameter fields and all of the help block, and we built that into a single form. So, we said that a form was mandatory, or a field was mandatory, so now it's required. We take the help message in here, and we put synopsis, or the parameter values. We put the synopsis up here at the top. We extend that to say we're going to start validating patterns. So, hey, look, that requires 4 digits. Or we come in here, we've specified a birth date. So now we're going to require the employee provide the birth date. In our case, we can select multiple services to reset. And if we submit, it'll say, hey, look, you haven't even provided this field. So we do all of that validation. And if you tie this into your HR database or some other system where the employee has provided their phone number, in our case, we're just going to text them that phone number, text them their password to their phone number. Now the help desk employee doesn't even have the credential. So now you've completely eliminated your help desk as a risk factor for compromised accounts or being socially engineered. Because if your CEO calls in, well, the password's going to his phone, and we're done. Now we're gonna step past the idea of a password reset, and we're just going to go into showing some of the other features. Here we're going to take both the synopsis and the description, and we'll see what happens in a little bit. In the case of synopsis and description, we do support the full HTML. I've gotten some feedback that they maybe do or don't appreciate that, but this is not a vulnerability to SQL or to injection or cross-site scripting, because you need to be trusting this script anyway. I mean, this is your script running privileged commands. Now we come in here, we can do additional validation. We can take pre-specified values. Let's see. We also support, we support virtually every validate field. Those that we don't support are the validate, not null, not empty, those combinations. It's just a matter that you're converting from HTML, which doesn't provide that kind of context, into PowerShell. We support validate length, Boolean fields, basically everything you can really take advantage of in a form. And you'll see here now we've pre-populated fields. That could be, for example down here, you've got account length. Maybe you wanted to make a temporary vendor account form or something like that. And they have to submit a reason, and you say, oh, which services, and you go through and you're done. Or extending that further, we can, I'll close this out. We also support being able to run scripts on load. So when you go to that page, you'll see some data. It runs a PowerShell script, so they can be whatever information you want. And we support markup for that. And we'll see what happens here in a moment. I don't think there's anything fun or exciting in this. Oh, there is. I've added, I guess, directives so that you can specify certain fields to do more than I can define straight in straight PowerShell. We'll see what date time does in just a moment. Multi-line, I think you can guess where that's going. If we...
Hey, Mark, can I have one question?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, you can hear me now? Sorry.
Yeah.
Anyway, so my question is that I see you define the script, and then you have to, invoke a new, where is it? Yeah, a new WebJEA command there.
Yeah.
Can every single time you update the script, or when is that's loaded into memory, or is that sitting on a...
That is all on the server, and that is read at runtime.
Wait, runtime is to when the user logs in, or
during the page load.
So when someone goes to the page, it invokes that, so you can dynamically change the script on the fly.
Yes.
Right. and it changes as they load the page.
Well, you know, just like a PowerShell script is loaded the moment you execute it. If you've got a long-running script and you modify the script while it's still running, you haven't modified the in-memory script.
Okay.
But the next person who hits submit is going to get the new version of that script.
Okay. So when you open the page, it reads the entire PS1 and generates the page based upon the data in it. So all the variable validation. The work isn't done until you hit submit.
Correct.
So it doesn't go into begin, doesn't go into process, and all that kind of stuff. But it just reads the header so that you can dynamically change it. So I can refresh the effective script simply by just changing the path. And so I could put the scripts themselves on a network share, have it, load that in, and then as people change it, we can update the script dynamically, or on the fly. I don't have to reset the entire app pool and
no,
like that.
that it is you don't have to reset the app pool. I've certainly not tested putting them on a network share. There's no reason it shouldn't, as long as the account has access to that share. In the case of what you're seeing here, we have that onload script, and that runs the moment the page loads. So once that's done and loaded, you can't make any changes to it because it's already executed.
Yeah.
But on next load, we can populate, or update the other script, or as you need to update the onload script.
So by clicking on the left side, demo 3, demo 2, you're effectively loading them again, and then you updated 4, and then you came back and reload.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay.
So from we use some markup here to make links out of these, and I can use that to pass parameters in to your script. So hey, that could be, exactly as you've shown, or it could be a full set of parameters. That's especially helpful if you want to integrate this with your help desk application, or send you could have an automated script running as a scheduled task, and if it finds some, that sends an email with a link in it, and that link could take you here and pre-populate the fields. We also, as you saw, we now have a multi-line reason. With birth date, we've now gone to not just a date field, but also date and time. And when we, if we were to submit, we would get validation. Hey, you haven't selected these fields, or let's see, 9996. Oh, too many. And I think if memory, so there you go. I can only select 1 or 2 of these. So you can even expose verbose and error messages as color-coded. They're automatically color-coded. You can customize that with the CSS that comes with WebJEA. You can also, when you define links, you can also, I'm not quite there, I think. Let's see. To answer one of the questions from earlier, if I log in with another user, I think, if user 2, I'm only given demo 1, because that was the only one that I'm a member of that security group. So you can specify either security groups or individual users to have access to each specific command in WebJEA. Does that answer the question from earlier?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, great. All right. So I'm going to show you a couple other variations here. Pretty quick. Yeah, we're doing all right. All right. Now, one of the first things people ask is, can I get the username of the person? And the answer is yes. We can take username and the host name that the person submits the page from. That typically comes across as an IP address. That's up to .NET and ASP.NET and how it presents it. But if I come in here and submit those two fields, WebJEA recognizes that those are hidden fields, implicit fields, and it doesn't need to ask the user for them, but it populates them when they're submitted. So you can always track who is submitting these, and if you need to use that for updating a ticket or sending an email, you've got the information you need to submit that. You can also do no parameters. Nothing, you don't need to have anything submitted. And in the end, you could have an onload that presents information and requires no parameters from the user, but performs an action on submission. And in this case, I think this one will take just a couple seconds because we're actually running jobs in the background. And so I think it takes about 10 seconds. There we go. 12 seconds in this case. So you can initiate jobs. One of the things we do at my job is we call a lot of Office 365. We're calling Graph now to perform actions when security comes in and says, hey, we need to compromise this account. I'm not doing it. I've set up WebJEA. They go and take care of it all. And they don't have to have the permissions to do it. One other thing we can do is generate a landing page without having to generate a script that has a command to run or something like that. We can just load that straight into the command in WebJEA when we load it. And what you get is JavaScript, CSS, whatever you want to do in your synopsis. And then here's a demo of what WebJEA is capable of. You can mark up and include images. You can include images that take you to a place and load other links. This is all pre-formatted, so it maintains tables. You can take advantage of the existing formatting, but you can also create links and CSS, like we've done up here. We created a CSS tag to, use a variable width. So if you really wanted to change the formatting to make it easier and a little bit more user-friendly, you can absolutely do that. I think the final thing on my list here is logging. Built in is just a straight log file that can log parameters. So let's see, this may not. Let's just do the very last one. Usage 0. We'll bring this up a little bit. So this is brought in as this is the telemetry. What we're seeing is, if you turn on anonymous telemetry, this is what's being sent to me, and it just allows me to track how many people are using it and system specs to get an idea of what's in use. Let's see. Let's try -1. No, -2. There we go. That one's not. There we go. So when the user, when I accessed the overview page, it tells me, hey, this person ran that command. If I go back, I think executing is the one that really, there we go. You can even see usernames and passwords as they are executed. That is an optional value, so it does not have to log that data. So if you're going to be putting in sensitive information, you probably want to turn that off, and that's just done through the WebJEA config module. But if you want to track what they're doing, that is the way to go. I think I've already shown you how to send parameters through the URI, but you can also send them as post and get the same results. So you can pass, you don't even have to present it or expose it through URLs. You can pass that data through a web form. If anybody's not familiar with PowerShell advanced functions, you can go to my GitHub. I've got one out there that has a lot of, I would say the majority of common things you're going to try and use. And I think that's about it. So with WebJEA, you can do JEA. JEA is all about reducing administrative permissions and limiting and tracking what your users are doing. All of the security is built into .NET. You know, all the inputs are parameterized, output is encoded, so you're not subject to XSS or you know, SQL injection or any kind of cross-site injection attacks. But ultimately, your security is your PowerShell script and who you grant access to it. System requirements, all you're looking for is a basic Windows 2016. I have seen people are using this with 2012 R2. I gather it's working for them. I've not done any testing on 16. I don't see any value going less than that. But it's out there. The memory and CPU requirements are really just going to depend on your usage. All of these demos have been done on a 1-core, 1 gig. And then, you know, I think most of you will find the most value with making sure you use a certificate and a domain joined machine. And that's it. If you have questions, let me hear them now. But if you go in and you want to start using this, by all means, reach out to me. Email, Twitter, on GitHub. You can submit an issue. However you want to get a hold of me, I'd love to hear it. Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, Mark, Mike.
Yeah.
So you jumped in and you were going through the demo in the beginning and you started going through some scripts. I think maybe you glossed over one thing that I just want to review. So if I want to get started with this, I go to your website. I'm going to pull down a package of some pre-built stuff. What do they need to add to the pre-built to get themselves started?
So what you need to add are a service account and a certificate. I strongly recommend using the managed service accounts. I can't encourage that enough, but any kind of service account and a certificate for your own safety. And then
there's some basic starter scripts to get them off the ground?
There are. In fact, it's the same script that I was walking through. Here, let's see, right about here. Your DSC config, you shouldn't have to make any changes to. The DSC deploy is what you would modify and execute, and that is all included. And we also include, I've also included, I don't know if it's here, I've included this script and a validation script that goes with it that shows you all of the features of WebJEA. So it includes date, time, all the directives, shows you everything it can do.
So I mentioned that because a lot of our meetings, we've had people that presented talking about like this is how you build something from scratch, and this is almost a pre-canned solution.
There's a lot of starter
already.
This really is designed to be a canned solution. You provide a cert and a service account, and you start writing scripts. You know, roll out your own. I mean, I hope if most of you, I'm sure, are using virtual machines by now. Building up a VM shouldn't cost you anything, and you're off and rocking.
All right. Anybody have questions?
I have one. A lot of your error messages are very PowerShell-like. Is that by design? I mean, you can make them anything you want, correct?
Well, yes. What I've shown here is what the intent here was to emulate the built-in error messages. Now, if you want to write your own error messages, then all you would do is try catch or do your validation and say write host with whatever you wanted to say, and you might include you can use the CSS formatting right here so that you can do your own coloring. You can do red. If you don't like red, that's too offensive, too glaring to your users, and they get hurt by it. Use green.
What about the validation, though? You've made your validation look like an advanced function. Are you actually piping out those error messages, or are you making your own?
You mean like if
like,
I fail?
Example, your example when it did not match that regular expression.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't have, at least at this point, I've not put anything in to support like a friendly error message, because the built-in validate script doesn't offer that. Now, I think, there's a guy out there who's written a new validate script that does support friendly error messages. And I think in those cases, if there were a way to integrate that, I would be interested in doing that. I just haven't looked at it.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a question about just like all of these scripts are very single event things. So if I needed something that was more dynamic, so where I wanted to have some sort of conditional logic that changes what occurs or what presents as extra input, is there a way to create can you do that, or would that just be making multiple single event things that are very similar to each other? And then
at this point, that would be either making multiple single events or trying to describe to users what fields they need to be entering.
Okay.
WebJEA technically supports parameterized input. Parameter sets. Technically, it does not have any awareness of that, and so you might not get a desired experience. I think there's certainly room for those kind of features. They're just not there yet.
Okay, so it's kind of like I was going to ask that question. I think it's similar to what you're asking. Is I can see this as, hey, I want to, I work in a Citrix environment, so give people access to VDIs and stuff like that. So, but potentially have it dynamically give me a list of all the delivery groups or the groups that it can go into, and then let the help desk admin just choose the one. But I don't want to hard code in that list of what those groups are. So I wanted to dynamically build. This user needs to go in that one. And so potentially you put it in the validate set. You dynamically build it at load time.
Ooh.
Like the validate set would run on the fly, like in maybe. That's kind of what I thought at this point. But that'd be kind of interesting. What do you think?
Well, I mean, you could build. Writing scripts is always possible. I don't know that
the drop down is like that service and all that is just the validate set. So you could define what the dynamic parameter validation is?
But you can't validate set in an advanced function. Doesn't it have to be a
No.
literal list?
It can be anything. It just needs to return the list. You can actually have it. That's what the curly braces is. It's anything.
Is the output also rendered HTML? So if
The
you-
output. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. So the output is rendered as HTML. It is effectively pre-encoded so that it doesn't. You don't suffer from JavaScript injection or anything like that. If I were to put JavaScript into one of these first, .NET would throw a fit and prevent me from submitting that. But if I were to somehow get past that, it would just be presented as text. That is not true with the synopsis and description values. Those are straight HTML. There is flexibility in there. Going back to the validate set, we don't execute the validate set script. All we're doing right now is parsing that as an array. So there wouldn't be a way to do that dynamically. I think that just to add one more comment on that, I think that might fall under targeting more of a developer mindset as far as trying to build a very UI-based input and output, as opposed to what this is really designed as. I can crank out a script in half a day or a day and get my users using it, even if it's not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Question down there.
Yeah.
Mark, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Since you're generating HTML, could you use features of HTML5 to do some of your validation at the web page level? Since you have fields and you can define fields as particular data types, and then what type of constraints there are at the HTML5 level.
You can do that. You could theoretically use the synopsis and description fields to load JavaScript and do advanced validation. There's no reason that shouldn't work.
I don't even think I don't think it requires JavaScript. It's the definition of the page itself without having to
using the data, using data fields.
Yes.
It's conceivable. I would have to really give consideration to how to standardize that, because I think there'd be a lot of, this gentleman back at the back was wanting to do, execute the script and perform an action. Well, if you're executing that script, there's going to be a delay there. So I think you'd really have to think through that.
Well, you have required fields, and the fields were particular data types, or it's a list. Pick one of these, pick multiple of these. Here's a date field, etc. So I'm thinking that user interface data validation is available to you if you want it.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to give that consideration. See how I could implement that for a more advanced validation. I think I saw some pop-ups asking about dynamic parameters and parameter sets. Neither of those are supported in WebJEA. Ultimately, it's just running code. It's just running the PowerShell script. So if it's something you can pass through WebJEA and do additional validation there, then it's all on you. I hope that answers. Oh, Josh King, how are you doing?
All right. Yes. I think, did we ask all the questions on the chat? I think they were kind of active a little bit.
Yeah,
I can't see all of them, so I'll leave it to somebody else to tell me if I missed one.
I think they're just had some input along the validate set lines and.
Somebody wanted to know if dynamic parameters or argument completers are supported. I think we covered that.
Yeah. It's a really cool product, and I think it's super interesting. And I think one of the comments even in chat was like, the first thing I implemented after Summit, and people use it daily. So I think it's something worth the effort to look into at least.
And if, I don't work at a big budget shop, so we are probably never going to have the money to go out and get a self-service reset tool, or it's something that I have to fight for. This is something that's basically a low or no-cost solution that you can get up running pretty quickly. And when I see it, it's pretty slick. It gives you everything you need. It may not have every bell and whistle that, let's say, something like Psychotic has or something like that, but that's also sometimes a $50,000 or $60,000 product, right? So, this is a perfect example of someone using their ingenuity with PowerShell and coming up with a simple solution to a complex problem, right?
Super slick.
I think Mark would be happy to integrate it. Another cool one, right?
So you see where I work, and maybe you didn't touch on it, but it's branding.
You don't like the name, huh?
No, brand it with your company name.
Oh, well, you do have. You can customize this. The very top left. That can be customized with whatever you want, within whatever will fit. I will also show you that I think if I do that,
Template page.
Yeah.
and I do that, it does support mobile access. So you can present this
That's slick.
to, reset those user passwords when you're outside the movie theater rather than having to RDP in.
I certainly hope you're not putting this on the public internet.
I just have to wonder, because that's the same example he gave at Summit. Someone likes movies. But our desktop
I'm just saying that I know a couple people who have had to work standing outside the theater and have to RDP.
One of the questions that came across, you said you can edit the text there. Can that also be a logo, or is it just text that you can?
It is. Wow.
I knew I wasn't going to be the only one.
I have not tried to throw an image tag in there.
Okay.
Try it out and let me know.
Like easy glue, That's pretty cool.
You said that you configure the logging to show the parameters or not. Is that per script?
That is per script. You can set a default and then override that on a per script basis. One of the other things, and I know people don't like to reveal, they shy away from telemetry and all that, but what I want to show you is what I'm seeing from what y'all have sent, what people who are using this. There are 35 companies out there using this. I've had 23,000 runs since this was presented in April. That's more than 2 days worth of PowerShell time. What that tells me is I've hit a sweet spot. People have this need, and being able to have that telemetry is critical for me to know whether to keep pursuing this or not. So that is my appeal to y'all to keep the telemetry on. Everything is hashed. I can't see usernames or anything like that.
Oh, that's your telemetry, not our.
That is the telemetry of WebJEA.
That's the data going back to him to show analytics, to show what's happening when you run it.
But could you get that telemetry to yourself?
The telemetry is stored in the logs as in JSON. I kind of showed it. I think the very first one.
It's good to see, who's using your WebJEA front end. How often it's going to.
He showed this already. Come on now.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. So this is the actual telemetry that's being sent to me. There's nothing identifiable. We've just hashed everything out. It's unique, but it's identifiable. But if you're looking for who is running, then you can say, if you go, let's see.
Some of that.
That was in here right at the bottom.
Sorry. I apologize.
That's all right. So, let's see. Let's do.
Well, that's some of it, but it's nice web page too.
Josh just chimed in the chat. Josh King just chimed in the chat that he just flew in a logo on the fly on his, and it worked.
Well, there you go. Thank you, Josh. Always count on the.
Yeah.
Always count on the Kiwi.
Yeah.
I hope that's not offensive.
well, if it is, he can't respond. So.
That's right. So you can with the username log or with parameter logging, you can see actually the command being run. But even without the parameter logging, you would still get username and the script and date and time of when that script was run, and that's all in your logs on your system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Super cool.
Yeah. I'll be installing this tomorrow.
Yeah. He's playing.
I was looking for it for my old job. I'm gone now. I think I might email him.
I currently do a bunch of PowerShell scripts on some really hacky terminal services.
Yeah. I have.
So,
5 different remote apps that are just PowerShell.
Jeremy, Josh just threw a screenshot of the logo he just threw in there real quick.
Nice.
If anybody's curious, swing by my machine later and I'll show you. Anybody who's on the remote, there's a link in the chat if you want to be curious to see what it looks like with a logo instead of text. So, and the guy that we're talking about here, Josh, that's the guy that's going to be presenting for us in a month. He's going to be doing a pretty slick presentation on performance tuning. Yeah. It'll be like 10 a.m. Any more questions for Mr. Mark? Well, I just want to say thank you, Mark. You did an awesome job tonight. We really appreciate you joining us. I hope you had as much fun as we did.
I did. I appreciate the opportunity, guys.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So thank you very much. If there's anything you want to add, Mark, the floor is yours. Otherwise, thank you, and we'll see you soon.
I think I'm good. I hope everybody please reach out to me if you've got questions, or if if there are features you want to see. Just let me know. Thank you.
All right. So anybody who's on the remote, I think we're gonna end the remote session now. We might chat a little bit in the room, but thanks all for. Okay. Yeah.
And we'll just leave that up until we.
All right. So